Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Retold, the podcast where I retell you my favorite stories of all time. Today, we're retelling Frieren, Season 2, Episodes 3 and 4.
Yay.
Yay! So if you're new here, like normal, this is typically my wonderful little Harry Potter podcast, but we have recently started expanding to cover more fantasy and anime on the pod. And my wife and I, we love both those genres. We love them so much. And one of my favorite shows in the past couple years has been this little gem called Frieren. Hope you've checked it out. It's been very popular in the anime community. It's also a fantasy type show, very Tolkien inspired, as I mentioned in some of our previous coverages of it.
And even if you're not an anime person, the English dub is very good. It honestly doesn't really feel,
I would
like
say
an anime compared to a lot of them.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point. Like if you're kind of weirded out by like anime or whatever, this is so
it's very friendly,
fantasy and Tolkien coded that I think people like D&D coded too, that people would love this stuff. But anyway, we've already covered episodes 1 and 2 of season 2. We also covered season 1 in its entirety on some of our previous episodes. So go check that out if you haven't already. Also, if you do hear some cooing in the background, I'm literally holding my sleeping daughter in my arm right now. So
she talks in her sleep sometimes.
Yeah, we tried to record last night and she didn't let us.
No.
So we're doing that right now. But anyway, let's get to it, baby, before she wakes up.
Yep.
Episode 3 of season 2, Somewhere She'd Like. And so this one picks up in their journey north in the Etwis Mountains. And also, if you're someone new to Frieren, in this story, they're traveling north to get to a land called Enda, where the souls rest. So they can talk to some people who have died.
Basically heaven.
Yeah, it's kind of meta. Like they're going to heaven. That's the MacGuffin of the series.
If heaven was a physical place you could travel to.
Like that country song. If heaven wasn't so far away, I'd pack up the kids and go for the day.
Yep.
Good song. Anyway, episode 3, Somewhere She'd Like. In the Etwis Mountains, our crew is excited to come upon some hot springs, and Frieren says, y'all are in luck. There's a village up ahead. And after a while, Stark is like, hey, where the heck's this village? And they end up finding just one cabin in the remains of the old village. Turns out that it was abandoned 30 years ago when the hot springs dried up. And I do like when they are having this dialogue here, that there just happened to be one family that stayed behind for some reason. We don't know why, but they chose to. I guess we kind of learn in the next episode, other people's homes.
Perhaps. Could be also because the guy looked very old, so maybe he just can't travel.
That's fair. So they start talking to this family, who the only family left in this village, to get some information. We see Stark playing with the kiddos like he normally does. Frieren's all bummed out. They draw her all silly. She says human villages fade before you know it. And Bailey, the next hot springs is a freaking week's journey away. But Stark asks if there's another one closer. And the old dude said, you know what? There is one. Just a hop, skip, and a jump into the mountains. And Frieren's like, I don't know about that. Stark says, nah, I've heard of that one. Let's do it. And he's surprisingly adamant about it. So Frieren's like, all right, if you want to that bad, sure. And, one thing that we mentioned before was that, like in our previous coverage, we had a section with our favorite lines, and we'll still have that, but we'll kind of highlight them more throughout the episode. And this is one of the ones for me. When Stark asks if he can go to that hot spring, Frieren just sort of like the way she consents to it, like the way she agrees, when she just kind of was like, yeah, sure. We got all the time in the world. I love her happiness there.
Well, it's like, who is she to deny somebody else their,
whimsical
side
little journey?
quest?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We get a walking montage. One thing to note is that there are some bigger fish at the campfire. Okay, that was a little shtick in the first 2 episodes where Stark was catching tiny little fish, but now it seems like he's upgraded to medium fish, and the anime didn't make a big deal about it at all, so I wonder if that was intentional. Finally, they're almost there, and Fern is like, hey, Frieren, you don't seem that excited about this. And she says that she's actually been to this hot spring with Himmel and the gang, and we get a funny little flashback where Heiter's struggling to, like, the whole way. There's that one scene where Himmel's trying to pull him up a rock. There's another one where he's swaying as they walk through the forest. And my note here was Himmel treats forests the same way he does dungeons, where he has to explore every nook and cranny. And that's something they showed in season 1, where every time they explored a dungeon, he kept having to like go, "All right, before we go to the next floor, there's a section over here." That is me in video games now, and I've learned I can't do that anymore because I get tired of the video game.
Oh.
I used to be like that, but
Well, to be fair, like compared to 10 years ago and certainly like 15 or 20 when,
mhm.
you maybe first started getting into video games,
Oh,
like
20 years.
I know, but like video games now are so big.
Mhm.
So like you kind of you can play for hours and not even be close to progressing, quote unquote, whatever the main quest or story is.
Mhm.
Whereas like even in a game like Skyrim, which at this point is 15 years
Massive.
old, it is big, but it's not nearly as big as say like The Witcher, and like
Yeah, that's the game I've recently tried to play, and it's just
it's
so
so
big.
overwhelming, and it's like when you're an adult,
And I do,
it's
don't get me
like,
wrong, I love that. I love that
yes,
it's massive. Like I
right,
got Hogwarts Legacy, and
same
I did
thing.
explore everything there, or almost everything there, but
Uh-huh.
it was still like I kind of wish there was a little less, even though I don't
Yeah,
really mean that. It's a
right.
double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is this really cool scene transition. So in the flashback, when that lizard monster flies overhead, Himmel's head like swivels to the right. But in whenever he does that in the present, it like zooms back out and it's their party again. So it's a really cool transition of the when the dragon appears. Or the sorry, lizard monster. Because if you remember Bailey, Stark calls it a dragon, and Freeren's like, nah, lizard monster. So Freeman says the lizard monster is upset because beasts are usually upset when you invade their territory. Checks out. Oh, by the way, if you want to get past this thing, you got to strike off all three of its heads at once. No big deal. So the monster comes running up at them. I love the bells in
Oh,
this
and the music.
sequence.
Yeah.
Yes, the bells like
Good job, Evan Cole.
gonging. Yeah, that was really cool score in that moment. So Freeman tells Stark to run because she has a plan, and so he books it out of there, leading the beast away. And it's a really funny scene when they're Freeman and Fern are both floating up in the air, and Fern goes, "So, what was your plan?" And Freeman's like, "We're doing it. Stark is bait. Like you're looking at it." The scene changes, and he's all gassed out. His eyes are really funny drawn. Freeman says, "Good job, you two." And then we get some fun little folky music as they head up to the hill or to the top of the little knob where the spring was. Do you know what I mean when I say knob?
Isn't that like,
I've told you about this
oh,
before. Listeners, if you don't know, I'm from Kentucky and like we live in Georgia now, but I'm from Kentucky. And in Kentucky, at least the part where I used to live, there were these rock formations called knobs, Knobs. And they're like too small to be considered rocks. Sorry, to
mm-hmm,
be considered mountains, but
mm-hmm,
too big to be considered rocks.
mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what this thing was. It wasn't a mountain, but it wasn't a
Yeah.
rock. It was a knob.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was
there's
kind
your
of thinking it was kind of like there's, I've only really seen this term once. Um, it's called a tableland, and it's basically like a
mm,
big, hill or
yeah.
something, but the top of it is flat. So like, you
It
know,
could be that. Like Weathertop.
yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
it was Weathertop. Okay. Anyway, maybe not a knob. Let's see. Where am I? My notes. Freestyle starters. Okay. They get to the top of the knob, maybe. And Freeman says, "See, told y'all we should have gone ahead," because they look at the spring and the spring's just this tiny little, like, they call it a foot bath. But I love this. Stark walks up to it and he says, "Nah, this is fine." And he puts his feet in and he says, "It's okay. It's a foot bath because this means we can all enjoy it together." Because if it was a regular hot spring, they got to separate boys and girls. They're like, nah, we can all chill out this time. And Fern asks why Stark wanted to go here, and we learned that it was because Ison told him about this very spring and said even though it was a crappy little spring, he was super glad his old party went. He was like, even though it definitely was a terrible time, or like the spring itself wasn't worth it, I wouldn't trade those memories for anything. It's adorable. And then I have this note here about your note on the transition scene when
Hmm.
because all the party members are lined up in the flashback, and when it transitions, what did you say about Freeman's
Yeah, so
placement?
I was kind of surprised. In the flashback snapshot, I believe Frieren was sitting on the right side of
Mm-hmm.
the rest of them. Um, and then when it flips to the present day, it's like obviously Fern and Stark have taken the place of the others, but I kind of was surprised that they moved Fern.
Frieren.
Moved Frieren to like the other side of them. And part of me didn't really like that because I thought artistically it would have been cool if like everything except the companions changed. The only way that I could excuse it is if there's some metaphorical meaning to it of like
she's progressing.
She's progressing, but also I would have to go back and remember which side
she was on the left originally, and then when it came back, she was on the right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know then. I don't know.
I like your version better. I think that's what they were going for, is that now she's progressed to like the mentor figure and she's moved further along in her journey.
Yeah.
Because, you read from left to right. I don't know. But I like yours better. Well, it's like that scene in Bluey. You
don't read left to right in Japanese, so it's not even.
Well, they made it for American audience. That ticks me off. Though. That ticks me off on the manga apps like Viz and Shonen Jump. When I first open it up, if I accidentally go right, or even if I don't do it
it's
on
like
purpose,
you're getting beaten.
Yeah, there's a little notification that says, "Hey, this is
freaking idiot."
Not even that. They're like, we are proud of our Japanese culture that like holds on to books like this.
They think that it's like insulting.
Yeah, I was like, that's not. Yeah, my thumb just slipped.
Yeah, I will say it's not that accurate to say that Japanese is read from left to right. Pages are flipped from left to right. However, in traditional writing, it was like up to down. And then since they changed to be horizontal, they do actually write their letters from left to right. And so you'd be on a page, and if the writing was written horizontally instead of vertically, you would actually be reading from left to right like you do in English.
So I was right.
Well,
I was right.
But like, okay.
And so they enjoy the view. Later, as they are climbing down the mountain, Fern falls and knocks everybody down. And then we get the little note, going down is brutal. And Stark says, maybe it wasn't worth the effort after all. And that's silly. Part 2 of the episode. In the fortress city of Hebe, Frieren is in a dope hot spring with somebody who calls her young. That's a funny moment where they're like, you look a little young to be enjoying this hot spring. We transition to Stark and Fern hanging out at the end. They're chit-chatting. And it's kind of funny. Fern basically initiates like all the stuff going on here because she says she doesn't have anything to do the next day. And Stark in his own world is just like, yeah, that's true. Maybe I can go to like an armory or tomorrow. And she's like, ahem. And she says, pay attention to me because, that's your day. What about what I'm doing? Yeah. And she calls him inconsiderate. And he thinks she's being unfair and that it's payback time and goes, all right, then fine. How about you and I, we go on a date? And rather suddenly, she drops her book on the floor and he thinks, uh-oh, I messed up. And we get that
like
cute
all this
animation.
Time from the start. Like, it's kind of funny that she's like, pay attention to me while she's not even looking at him because she's got a book in her hand and she's reading the book. And then when she drops the book, her head doesn't even move. Like, she's still not even looking at him. She just has this blank expression.
She's trying to play hard to get, baby.
She's being nonchalant.
Yeah. But she drops the book and she leaves the room. But she does say, see you tomorrow. And he picks up her book and is like, you forgot this. And then in the next transition, we get like, it went viral on social media, but the famous Frieren with a towel and a popsicle, because a spoiler for our manga differences later, but that's not in the anime or in the manga at all. She looks so freaking different, and she has her head wrapped up and her ears are pointed down and hair is poked out. It's cute. She and Stark eat some food, and when she asks him for advice, when he asked her for advice, she goes, bruh, who are you talking to? And he's like, that's true. But she does agree to help. So he goes, all right, Frieren, what would you say if I asked you on a date? And she says, well, you've grown into quite a fine young man, Stark. Matter of fact, I'll even treat you. He's like, this is like a grandma and a grandson talking to each other. She goes, whoa there, sonny boy. That's the second time you've called me old. There won't be a third. And he says, but what if there is? And she tells him about her famous tantrums. And this also went viral on social media. You loved this. I think on the second watch, I liked it a little more, but it was
Mhm.
very odd. It was a very different feel for Frieren of her little tantrum scene with Himmel, because she says, like, my tantrums even, like, terrified Himmel
Mhm.
the hero.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people probably were mad because they felt like it was some kind of contradictory for her. In my mind, it's like it's enriching. It's like
Mhm.
it adds another like facet to her
Yeah,
character.
I like
It
that.
doesn't contradict anything because like listen, like she's an elf that's lived for 1,000 years. Is she going to be monotone like
Mhm.
you know,
It did go on for a while, but that's to your point of,
that's
like,
funny.
yeah.
But well, yeah, it goes on for a while for the same reason why it takes her a long time to wake up. It's because
Mhm.
time doesn't move the same as her.
That's
So
true.
like her tantrum is going to last longer because, you know, she's more slow going through time than the others. So
You like the one where she was, like, behind Himmel?
yeah, there's a couple where one of them she's behind him and another one she's in front of him like clutching his like
Cape or
cape.
something? Yeah.
Yeah. I want to know what she was so sad about.
That's true. I want to find out. Um, but anyway, Stark asks Frieren for advice and where to take Fern, and they take a little jaunt around the town. She basically tells him to feed her several times. They stop at a trinket place, but it's mostly just the food she points out. Like, it's always, you want to give her food, oh, check out this place, and then get her food,
Mhm.
and then check out this place, and then get her food. And that's basically the key to Fern's heart. But they do end up at a quiet little plaza with a view. When Stark compliments her for knowing all this, she says, I don't know anything. Like, I didn't learn this about her, or I didn't learn this for myself. Heiter was awesome, and he's the one who told me about this. And we get that flashback of him teaching her. And Frieren says, I think he was wanting me to be a good parental figure to her, but I just never learned that much. And I love this moment. Stark says, nah, you rock for remembering all that.
Mhm.
Like, that's just incredible that you held on to that information and that you make use of it. And then Freeman says, you have some nice things to say sometimes, Stark. And I like his reply was, I know, right? She goes, I shall remove one strike. He says, thanks. And then near the end of the episode, we transition to Frieren and Fern alone in the room at the end of the day. And Fern sits next to Frieren, looks at her a couple times and says, she was asked on a date. And Frieren just goes, you too? We learn that Frieren has been on a date before, and she went out with Himmel the hero because they were
Mhm.
looking for a kitty cat. When Fern says that's not a date, I love the little flash of the mentor,
Mhm. Flamma.
Flamma, but also Frieren's face. They're definitely going to make memes out of Frieren's face here because it's like that one from season 1.
Smirking.
But yeah, that little smirk, she goes and she says, my master told me that anytime two people of the opposite sex hang out alone, it's a date. Bailey, do you remember my rules for a date?
I think it requires
And audience
among
or listeners, if you don't, you of course you don't know. I had this little bit when we were like Bailey and I. We dated for like 3 years before, and we knew each other for a year even before we started
almost
dating.
2 before we started dating.
Yeah, and so we had a lot of conversations over that time, and we had a very big friend group at the church we were at, and sometimes questions of relationships would get brought up, and people would say, "Did they go on a date? Did they go on a date?"
Well, and there were times that you and I hung out together just by ourselves when we weren't dating.
Yeah,
like because we worked out at the same gym, and you would be like, "Hey, you want to go get food at Zaxby's or something?" And like. I had a crush on him from the second I saw him. So I was like, oh, yes.
But people would often, like, this question would be asked, did they go on a date? And I was like, well, there are 3 criteria for a date, and 2 of them have to be met in order for it to be considered a date.
Mhm.
Who came up with this? Just me. This is completely arbitrary, but you said you remember one of them?
One of them, I believe, was you had to pay for it.
Yes, the man has to pay. Guys, listeners, this is just my rules, all right? You don't have to agree. But there was the man has to pay. Or how about this? I think it also works if just one person pays for both. One person pays for both. What that same person drives, if they drive you, and if they make a move. All right. So payment, drives, makes a move. And I remember I'd always tell,
is kind of like,
I would always tell people, I was like, if paying and driving happen, it's probably a date.
yeah.
But if paying and driving don't happen, but the making a move happens, it was still a date, probably.
Yeah.
It's like that's the trump card. But anyway, those are my silly little rules.
Mhm.
I remember there was one time when I was like, I won't tell that story. Fern says, forget this, and she goes to bed. She can't fall asleep, though, and the episode ends with her looking out the window with a nice little plucking melody playing. You know, dun, 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 dun.
Mhm.
That's probably what it sounds like. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. Yay!
Yay.
So let's move on to our favorite moments in lines.
Okay.
Like I said, I loved the one where Frieren agrees to go along. I also love the moment where Stark says that it was okay so that they could all be together. Like it's okay
Mhm.
that this,
With the hot spring.
that the hot spring was tiny. This means that we can all actually hang out with one another.
Basically just a foot bath.
Yeah.
Instead of,
But I love the focus on being with each other.
Mhm.
And then my last one was Stark comforting Frieren there at the end when they were at the plaza looking out.
Mhm.
She's just like kind of down on herself, like, I don't know nothing. But Stark saying, no, you have been a great parent to
Mhm.
Fern. So those are my top moments. What about you, baby?
In the first half of the episode, I also like what Stark says, but rather than it being a specific moment, I think just conceptually what I appreciated was like how accurate and realistic a trip like that is for even like what real life is like sometimes. Like it makes me think back of when we were hanging out with that really big friend group. We would go hiking and stuff all the time. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, oh, I've heard of this place. Let's go here. And then we go and it's like really mediocre and definitely wasn't worth it. But you worked so hard to get there. It makes me think
We've had a few trips like that.
yeah, like recently we drove, what was it, like 2 hours?
Oh, to go to that cave.
To go to this cave or something. And it was one that you just enter in, you walk through, and
the cave might have been 100 yards deep, not even.
Yeah,
like
and there wasn't even like a trail or whatever, and it was very, very underwhelming. But
we drove 2 hours.
We drove 2 hours, but we did make the best of it because the town that it was in was really cute, old town.
And we found that copy of Jane Eyre.
Yes, that single-handedly made it worth it. There was this old bookshop, and my favorite book is Jane Eyre, and we found a Everyman's copy from 1920 something. It's over 100 years old. I remember that. But anyways,
that's the key to my wife's heart, listeners. If you ever want to send us gifts,
yes.
My wife likes old books.
Yes.
She's the easiest person to shop for Christmas and her birthday.
Even if it's a book that I like don't really care about, it's like, if it's old and in good shape. But anyways, I just appreciated the realistic element of what it's like sometimes traveling with friends. It's like sometimes the trip really wasn't worth the drama or whatever, but
you was with each other.
Yeah. Another thing, because this isn't gonna fit into favorite moment or line or proverb or anything. One thing I did want to point out before I forgot about this half of the episode is Frieren knew that there was gonna be a monster leading
the whole time.
The whole time. It was one monster, and it was the same monster as however many years ago that she was there with the heroes. Did they not kill it?
Maybe this place just has like, she called it a lizard. Maybe there was a little baby one, that existed before.
Yeah.
So I think they killed it before.
Okay. But it was kind of funny because it was like, come on, guys, did you like not even kill it?
Well, Frieren, we're going to leave this for your future party. You'll appreciate it. It's like him with the statues.
Yeah.
And is that it for both parts of the episode for you?
For favorite lines?
And moments?
Oh, my favorite line for the second half of the episode was just when Fern said, pay attention to me.
Yes.
I think it was funny. And just the added irony of her saying it while having her nose in a book and she's not even looking at him. It's like the ultimate girl move of like, you make yourself so available, but you try to seem like you're not interested. And it's like, sigh, oh, I'm so bored. What am I going to do tomorrow? I said, what am I going to do tomorrow?
The guys over there like, yeah,
I don't know. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Moving on now to our proverbs. Is that right? Yeah, our proverbs of the episode. And so this is, Frieren's covered in incredible lessons every single episode. And so with this one, like the Frieren brings back, like harkens back to the days of each episode having a moral to it. Like freaking Full House when all of a sudden the piano would come in or the music would get real serious.
And the dad would
say the moral. So for this one, obviously it's a lot of what we just said. Appreciating the time with the people that you're with, even if the trip isn't that good. And so this is very similar to a lot of other episodes of Free Rent, but it's just about, even though you're going, it's about making the people you're with more important than the journey you're on. Wow, somebody write that down. That's good stuff. Somebody made an episode about it, Barry. Stop it. All right. Also, another one I wrote was doing what you can, even in spite of your weaknesses. And I thought of that because Frieren, she's comfortable admitting that she doesn't know people well and she's not good at learning about others.
But she's good at remembering.
Yeah. And so she was told something about Fern and she trusts, and that was a big thing too of season 1 is trusting other people at their word. So even if you can't pick up on things, the subtle things, it's just taking them at their word, their yes is being yes, their no's being no's. And so trusting Heiter when he said, this is what Fern likes. So that was my other one. Did you have any others for this episode?
Other proverbs?
Yeah.
For the second half of the episode, I consider it a proverb what Flamma had told Frieren about what a date is. It's funny because during different phases of my life, I've had varying and adapting opinions on the whole question of can a guy and a girl be best friends without it leading to something. And I think probably, but very rarely. It's almost like it's like
almost life contextual.
Well, and it's like the same attitude of somebody probably can I don't know, I'll do a dramatic example. Do drugs recreationally once in a while and not be addicted to it.
Yeah.
Sure, people like that exist. But to assume that you're going to be one of those people is, it's risky.
Better men have fallen for less.
Right. So and I'm not saying it's even a bad thing if, the best or the friendship evolves or whatever, but the chances that someone's going to get hurt or it will change like that because it doesn't have to change for both of you. Or it can
turn into something beautiful.
Well, right. I mean, that's, for sure. That's everyone's dream. But the problem is that it doesn't even just have to happen for both of you. It just has to happen for one of you. You and I both have had experiences like that where either we were the ones to change our feelings or the other person did and it got awkward and all that. So, yeah.
But I think this series is pretty much laying the groundwork that Stark and Fern are going to get together.
Oh yeah, they're probably going to get married.
Because Stark even says, "This is our first date." In the next episode, implying he wants more.
Yeah, well, and the journey altogether is going to take 10 years, right? I mean, they're already.
It's just me and you. It's also it's almost by necessity.
Yeah. Well, and yeah.
But he had the chance to leave. Oh, that's like the other country song. She had her chance to leave, but chose to stay. What a beautiful
all these
day.
Country songs.
That's basically the soundtrack to the show. Thank you, Evan Cole. Episode 4. Oh, wait, no. Manga differences. So manga differences, changes that the anime made from the manga. And so this comes from chapters 65 and 66 of the manga. First one is that when they show up to that little hot spring village where there's one town left, they play inside the cabin with the kids and they get all the information from that family inside the cabin. But in the show, they're outside, running around outside the house. So that's one. Another one is that whole Himmel searching and Heiter struggling flashback doesn't happen. Frieren says, yeah, we went here, but you don't see any of it. There's none of the flashback is included in the manga.
Yeah, I feel like with because of the design of the show, a lot of the episodes being kind of two-parters, it makes me think obviously that probably means that it's 2 manga chapters that they're encapsulating into a single series, and depending on episode, yeah. And depending on pacing and how complex the chapter is, they might have to do things like that. Otherwise, it's not going to be long enough. Not
only that, but at the moment, Frieren, the manga, is on indefinite hiatus. And so in this season is only going to be 10 episodes. So they are I've heard reports that they are stretching material a decent bit in the anime.
Yeah.
Which is fine. see what happens.
We've gone past the age of Full Metal Alchemist where, like, you know, even if you run out of manga material, it's like, okay, well then we're just gonna stop. Like, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the
Yeah,
foot and
they'll hold off.
veer and make another story, because then you're shutting the door behind you. Like, you can't,
In case you mess up what was
I think that's
intended.
a bygone era of anime at this point. Thank goodness.
So the other one is that Stark is not used for bait for the dragon. Like that whole comedic scene, it's not a comedic scene in the manga. In the manga, they're just all like, all right, let's boss out. And they fight the little lizard monster, or the big lizard monster, and they win. And at the end of that chapter, when they're walking down the mountain, Fern doesn't fall on them, but that dialogue still happens. Like, so they're walking down and Fern goes, going down is really difficult, or whatever she says, and Stark goes, yeah, maybe this wasn't worth it. So they still say that, but there's no falling moment. And then from chapter 66, Fern says, keep me company. That's how it's translated. And this is the Viz manga translation, so I've considered the official one, but she says, keep me company, not pay attention to me.
It's probably some Japanese phrase that has different ways to translate depending on the context. So,
gotcha.
There are a lot of phrases that they have like that, and the way, the cadence of it, I don't know what that phrase was, but it sounded like a phrase, kind of like yoroshiku onegaishimasu, or like, stuff like that, to where it's not easily translated into another language what it means. So
Tatabayo?
Yeah, actually, no, that's a great example from Naruto.
So another one is the last one for this one is that there's no Frieren chilling in the hot spring in this particular manga chapter. I think it's in the next one though. And that whole, like we said, her with the towel and popsicle doesn't happen. And her whole crying montage, it's only one panel.
Yeah. No, I loved that though. That was my other favorite moment from that episode. I'll fight people on it. It's so funny.
Yeah. So now moving on to episode 4, Other People's Homes. It's time to get ready for the date, and Fern debates between the purple and the green dress.
Purple dress was the right choice.
Yeah, I made a note of that you were happy about that. She asks Frieren, and Frieren says, it doesn't matter. Just get over here and braid my hair. And then she regrets saying that because Fern starts braiding her hair, and she says, don't braid out of anger. I'm sorry. She went with the purple dress. You were happy about that. Stark did not dress up at all. And so I have 2 notes about this date from the jump. One, like, he does a terrible job on this date. And you made the point earlier, as when we first watched the episode, you were like, they made us love Stark so much in those first 2 episodes.
So that we'll forgive him a little bit.
So that we'll forgive him when this happens. That was one of my notes. And then the other one is that her dress animation is crazy.
The shadow work is really good.
Shadow work, the ripples.
Patterns.
It's sick. Like, listen, I know, like, getting excited about fight animation completely makes sense because that's where you can usually show most of that fluid movement. But the work that Madhouse did just with this dress, there's like more animation in this dress than in all of One Punch Man season 3.
Yeah, well, it makes me think, like, nowadays animation quality is such where audiences have very little tolerance for cutting corners. And so sometimes when there's a scene and it's not really going to be very complex as far as what they're animating or whatever, I am starting to notice the animation studios will find ways to still make it visually interesting. Like, it makes me think of that recent Jujutsu Kaisen episode, season 3, spoiler free, by the way. But there's one scene where 2 characters are talking, and it's like a pretty long conversation, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah, we mentioned this
in another episode.
Did we? Oh, okay.
No, you can keep going.
Oh, yeah. 3 or 4 minutes where they're just talking, and that would have been a very boring scene, as far as visuals. But they did
rotoscoped it.
Yeah, rotoscoped it, and it made it a lot more interesting. Sorry for mentioning that again.
No, it's fine.
I still have baby brain. My brain is half the size as it should be.
And listeners, if you don't know, rotoscope is like when they take people in real life and
film them,
film it, and then animate it to match their movements. But anyway, so he's like, what's with the clothes? And she's like, "It's a date, bro." And he goes, "Dang."
He's wearing the same
He's wearing
outfit as
this.
normal.
And then we get this moment. He looks over to the side as they're walking and he sees a couple interacting. And then he looks back at Fern and he goes, "She do be looking cute though. Like, has she always been this cute?"
Mhm.
And for seemingly no reason, he starts walking all funny, real stiff. And she goes, "You're walking funny." And he's like, "No, I'm not." So he says they're going to the market and they talk a lot about all the magical items that Frieren got there. Fern then says, "We talk a lot about Frieren, don't we?" And Stark, like a genius, we need a genius counter for Stark this episode. So this is number 2 because he
Yeah.
commented on the dress saying like, "Why?"
Why?
So this is number 2. And Stark goes, "Yeah, there's nothing else to discuss."
Uh-huh.
Like, what else? That's number 2.
Yeah.
At one point, go ahead.
really quick, like one of the things that's clever about how this episode is made is that for the most of it, the audience is kind of experiencing the date just through Fern's mind. Like the only exception is when he thinks that she's cute. All of the other times we can't really like meaningfully hear his thoughts. And I don't even remember hearing Fern think anything.
No, they just show
It's
her
just
facial
her
reactions.
facial expressions. And it's like so effective though, you know exactly how she feels. And like if you're a girl, probably more so for a girl than for a guy. But if you've ever been on a date and you're like not really feeling like he's that into you, and it really does stack up. Like you are
moment after moment.
Yeah, it's like it's so
Poor
depressing.
Fern.
Yeah, it is. And like,
But he is into her. He just doesn't know how to date.
Right.
That's the whole point. And like I remember watching, shout out again to Pay Talks Anime, but he had an episode an episode on his YouTube channel covering this where he was just talking about, so much of this show covers these two characters and Frieren all being adept at what they do, the journeying and the fighting. But here in this episode, all 3 of them are out of their element.
There's no reason
like
why
she can't give advice, and these 2, they can't go to her for advice or for protection like they would in a fight. And they have never been on a date, and they got to figure this out themselves.
And Fern's not good at expressing her feelings. Like her saying, "Please pay attention to me," is like the only time really that she says exactly what she's feeling. But they're
they're just kiddos.
Yeah, it's a low stakes way to kind of
the stakes are high. This could be their marriage.
That's fair enough.
All right. At one point,
well, it would be awkward if they started hating each other and we're still traveling together.
At one point, he asks her what she wants to eat, and she says she's not hungry. And in his head, he's like, "Frick, the plan's ruined." That's what I was told to do.
Big red flag when Fern's not hungry.
And they're at the little trinket place, and she says, "Couples get a discount." And Stark, genius counter number 3, he says, "I guess being on a date does have some benefits." And she's like, "You're rather blunt." Sadly, when they walk away, another couple gets that blue necklace she was looking at. And that look back, she gives it one of those moments you were talking about. They do finally go to get some food, and he gets close to having a romantic moment. This is probably some of the best dress animation, right when she's about to fall over. But he catches her arm, and then she's like looking at him like, "Ooh." And he's looking at her, and it might be romantic. And then he ruins it by
Strike
going,
3.
"Man, those shoes really suck, don't they? Like, I bet they're hard to walk in."
Well, and they're like her nice shoes, and now they have a scuff on them. And he's like, "Why did you wear them?"
Yeah.
That's kind of the implied.
But that is like him, It's also him, like...
Sure.
Like, so does he not get that she dressed like this because it was a date? Yeah. But he also doesn't know how to act on a date. And to him, he's thinking practically. Anyway... So he does her shoes. She eats some tres leches. All right, I was looking at those pancakes she was having. It was sick. And he eats that big old strawberry ice cream that he loves. This is the berry blizzard or whatever it was that Ison would get him. Finally, they get to their quiet little plaza, and they talk about Himmel statues and poses. She says the view is really nice, and he finally is just like, "So, you didn't have fun, didn't you?" And she's like, "I wouldn't say that." And he goes, "But you didn't smile at all." So he was noticing her.
Very close attention. And like, I almost wonder if there was a version of this episode that was from his point of view, like all the different things that was going through his head. I do like that they kind of kept it from us until the end, though.
I think, I mean, I still picked up on some of it throughout, like the look on his face when she said she wasn't hungry. You know, I think, you know, from the guy's perspective, a lot of it is, you know, if you're in the type of situation where you're the one planning the date and moving things along, because that's kind of how it worked, is she gave the reins to him for where are we going? What are we doing? When things are not going well, you still got to put a good face on and be like, keep it moving. And so I kind of get it in like his nervousness of when she didn't want the food, but it's almost like watching a Jenga tower, you know, and making sure it doesn't fall apart. And so he's been looking at her this whole time and realizing, oh, she didn't smile. And she said it was okay, but it didn't feel like you. And I was looking forward to our date. And he admits that he asked Frieren for help in picking out all those places and that he just wanted it to be special for her. And I wrote in all caps, save, because that cheers her up, you know, because she says,
well, it contextualizes the whole thing.
Yeah. You know? It's like, okay, no, this didn't feel like him. And it was odd, but he still was thinking of her the whole time, was just trying to make her happy. And she says that she's cheered up by that she went to all this trouble, that he racked his brain so much for her. And then they sit and just have a fun time chit-chatting, looking at the clouds. It's a nice mirror of the time when he looked at the clouds by himself. And he's even looked at some of them as like inappropriate clouds, but now he's there with a woman, you know, and looking at and so instead of like her watching
juxtaposition, that's good.
Yeah. Instead of her watching from around the corner, she's sitting next to him and pointing out cloud shapes to him. So she's like, come into his world a little bit.
And they laugh and, you know,
they laugh, have a good old time. And she's like, you know, when I was an orphan, I never thought I'd have moments like this. But then she credits Heiter for this, saying like he gave her life back and a new chance. And he returns that same energy. You know, he mentions Ison and he's like, same thing. So that's nice, you know, meeting, kind of having a genuine conversation and exchanging real feelings. So the scene changes to Fern and Frieren at the hot springs, and Frieren says Fern is in a good mood. And Fern's like, nah, not really. And then Frieren is reminded of her date with Himmel, you know, that whole like cat adventure. And at the end of the day, like they're overlooking a plaza as well, and they haven't found the cat. And he says, even though they didn't find the cat, he still had an awesome time with her, and that's good enough. Again, piling on from like the previous episode. And he says, even if things don't go as you hoped, you can still enjoy the process. Oh, no.
Oh, she says, don't laugh at me. I was just stretching.
The cat does appear, though, and they chase after it. It's cute, people. So our heroes finally leave the city, and Frieren has really nice braids. And Bailey, these are the braids she gets when Fern is in a good mood.
Yeah.
And Stark can't tell the difference, though, and that's another point in the Stark counter.
Yeah.
So I think he ended with 5 or something.
Yeah. It's like Stark is so bad with the ladies. It's not just with Fern.
Yeah, it's all of them.
He's just such an airhead about it. But yeah, one thing that, like, you talking about the braids again made me remember, like, at the very beginning of the episode, and Frieren wasn't really helping. I will say, too, another thing about going on a date, the fun element of your girlfriend's helping you get ready for it and, like, picking out your outfit and hyping you up and all that. And that is a big part of a date. And it's sad that Fern also didn't get that from her.
Yeah.
Because she's her only, like, female friend.
So everybody's dropping the ball for Fern around here.
Yeah.
Moving on now to
second half of the episode.
Yeah. Sorry, I was a little distant there. I was taking care of baby. Moving on to the second half of the episode. Part 2 in the Nachricht region. I don't know if I say that. Nachricht region. They're out of the volcanic region, and they have arrived at the Northern Plateau checkpoint, which is a big old wall. They get all the supplies they need in a nice little shopping montage. Fern shows the guard her first-class mage papers, and Stark's like, dang, I guess Fern's a big deal. And Frieren says, yeah, bruh. And they walk along, and Stark's like, this doesn't seem that bad. You know, and Fern goes, are you kidding? And Frieren says they're surrounded by T-Rexes. You pointed that out. Like, there's a T-Rex Rexes.
They should look like dinosaurs.
Monsters. Yeah. We get a battle montage with a giant earth monster, a hypno snake, a massive bat gargoyle thing. Finally, they make it to a small town after 3 days journeying. A guy there says, "Y'all can stay at our empty cabin, no problem. But also, could you kill the big monster that's been killing lots of people around here?" Freeman says, "Sure. We were heading that direction anyway." Stark then goes, "Hey, buddy, it kind of sucks out here. And that big old walled town ain't too far away. It's just 3 days journey south. Why do you like it here? Like, why do you still live here?" And he says, "It's because it's home. And who would have been in their home?" And I was like, oof, that had to hurt Stark because
that's his lore.
That's his lore. But he gets it, though, because he's like, that's one of his biggest regrets. And he's like, you know what? You're right. So they go walking along the next day, and we see the big monster. You pointed out it's really dark scene because it's basically implied, like after that horse goes running past and we see the horse goes running past them and we see the back of the monster. It's basically implied that monster is eating a person. Like we know
it's
demons do that.
more than implied. I mean, like he definitely is.
We don't see it. You just see him eating. He's definitely, you hear the noise. They don't show it. Mm-hmm. He's definitely doing it.
It's the first time in the show that we've seen something that blatantly like gory, even though like you see the blood and hear the crunching and all that. Yeah.
So the monster grabs his sword and turns to them, and the fight kicks off. And it takes all three of them to beat this thing. They struggle for a little bit, and he's able to break their defenses, or break their defense barriers each time. Really cool moment, though. When Fern's barrier breaks, it turns into butterflies. At one point, Frieren blasts off one of his arms, and I like when she's up at the sky, she goes, it noticed me. Like after she knocked off his arm. She tells Stark to lock it down, and the beast tries to do his best Thorin impression. Do you get it?
From Hobbit?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
He's called Thorin Oakenshield because in the middle of the battle, he picked up an oaken branch and used it as a shield. And this demon grabs a tree and tries to use it as a shield.
Yeah.
But Stark just whoops it. So Stark busts it up and hops on his back. Also wrote down very hairy in the troll, from the first Sorcerer's Stone. And Fern can't get a shot. Frieren says, "I can!" And Fern protects him, because Frieren blasts him from the sky. Luckily, though, Fern protects Stark. And Stark says, "Maybe we should have traveled by sea after all." And it's flashback time. Frieren tells Himmel the very same thing in the flashback, but his reply is beautiful. He says, "This is why we came this way. This place is many people's homes, and it needs protecting too." Back in the present, she tells Stark the same thing, and he says, "You know what? You're right." And we get cool music, and everybody has a good moment. And the episode ends with Stark not being able to walk in its city. All right. So moving on now to our favorite lines and moments. Listeners, this is crazy. I haven't written any down. Okay, Bailey, you go first.
You haven't? Okay. Well, I like just a moment from each half of the episode. I like when they reconcile their date in the first half, of course. And then in the second one, I also like Stark protecting Fern when she like gets knocked against the tree and he like runs and, goes and gets her. Because it is a reminder of like what it actually means to care and love somebody. It's like, no, this is what this means. Like, even if he flailed a little bit on the date, like she shouldn't and doesn't question that he cares about her.
Yeah, and also shows in the things that he is competent in. Like that's where he really can show his care, Right. And if he was competent in dating, he probably would show that he cared there too.
It's like, if he can't be a gentleman, he can still at least be a man.
That's right. That's right. Good for you, Stark.
Yeah.
I think from the first episode, I really liked, there were some funny moments, the whole "don't braid my hair in anger." And I just, the dress animation when he catches her, I love that moment. And them laughing about the cloud together. I enjoyed that, and them connecting there. From the second half of the episode, I like the moment where Frieren in the flashback tells Himmel, "Hey, if this was going to be this dangerous, maybe we should have traveled by sea." And Himmel going, "That's exactly why we did this, because it is dangerous. And because, if we're supposed to be heroes who protect the world, it doesn't just matter the end destination. We need to protect all the places along the way." And I love that moment.
Yeah. And it's also just like a more accurate concept of being a hero and like, and even just not to make it more abstract than it needs to be, but like if you run away from the monsters and evacuate, the monsters are probably just going to spread anyway. So it's like kicking the can down the road too.
You know what else? It's like, I just had the thought, the freaking Avengers could never, because in one of the critiques in the Avengers movies of the Avengers is that these heroes, yeah, they saved New York from the monsters, but they still destroyed New York in the process.
Right.
And so it's like these people, Himmel saves the world and keeps it safe at the same, like keeps the places he goes to along the way safe at the same time.
Well, and that's why you're proactive, is so that you don't have to end up fighting on the, in your backyard.
Yeah.
So.
And that's kind of the proverbs of this episode too, So so let's move on to that section. So there's the ones we just said. And then did you have any of them?
I mean, that was kind of like the closest one.
Yeah, the closest one. And then I guess you could also say, all the stuff we mentioned of Fern and Stark on the date, of the importance of paying attention. And
yeah.
Okay, we're back. We had a little hiccup with the baby, but you were just telling me something about like thoughts on the demons.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that the demon we saw in this episode was...
And not necessarily a proverb related thing, but...
Yeah, not related to proverb. Just a side note. The demon that we saw in this episode was very monstrous looking, and we've seen demons look like that too. Like, what was the name of the one that had been petrified into stone? And
Claw.
Yeah, so he kind of, is more of a monstrous looking one too. But we've also seen demons that look pretty humanoid, like Ara the Guillotine and then the Peace Envoys from season 1. And it made me realize that, like, there's a variation here, and it's not really obvious that it's related to how powerful they are, because of the 7 stages of destruction. Like,
most of them do appear humanoid, I feel like.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But they're not all of them.
Maybe not all of them.
Well, but certainly the Qual.
Yeah, Qual, big boy.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a sage of destruction, I don't think.
No, but he was so powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it did just make me start thinking, like,
what's the Demon King going to look like?
Yeah.
Is he going to walk out this giant monster, or is he going to walk out like
just be this guy?
This guy, just a guy. With
yeah,
some horns.
Just a dude. I kind of hope that he looks more humanoid, because it does seem that the more humanoid they are, the more intelligent they are. Mm-hmm. Which makes sense, because if they're like animals that evolved for human speech, then it makes sense that the more evolved version they are, the more human they would look.
Yeah. It was also interesting to me as well that there were monsters that they slayed that disintegrated like demons, like that giant boar monster.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Very
thought,
Studio Ghibli that.
Yeah, and I thought, are these animal monsters demons as well, just of a different kind?
Yeah, it's like, are there different breeds or species of demon that are just more or less evolved than the others? Because all demons are animals, according to Frieren.
All right, moving on now, listeners, to our final section, manga differences. And this episodes come from this episode comes from chapter 67 and 68 of the manga. The first one, the date is not as bad as this. Like, they do make Stark worse. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't go well. But it's more just, rather than a bunch of these...
milk it.
Yeah, rather than a bunch of blunders by Stark, it's kind of just one continual blunder, I guess. What I mean by that is like, there's no Frieren complaints. He doesn't bring up Frieren a lot. He just does what he does in this episode, where he takes her to places that Frieren suggested, and so the issue is it doesn't feel like him. But all these moments where he says really dumb things, I think he does say at the beginning, why are you dressed nicely, or why are you dressed like that? But a lot of the other things don't happen.
Yeah.
Also, nobody else buys the necklace, when they're walking away from the stand and somebody else buys it. That doesn't happen in the manga, so the anime was really laying it on thick there of like, Stark, you blew your chance.
Yeah.
And then from the second part of the episode, Stark doesn't get hypnotized by that big snake monster, when he sees it and Fern has to pull him away. That doesn't happen. And that big bat monster that they're fighting, in the montage, they go into the cave and that big bat gargoyle thing descends upon them from the top of the cave while they're trying to sleep and rest. But that doesn't happen in the manga. In the manga, it's just one of the other beasts that they see outside in the forest. So in the anime, it's played for comedic effect. And then the final one, the big demon that they come across at the end, that big monster, he's not eating a person or something at the beginning of that fight. He's not eating something at the beginning of that fight. So, and the battle is much longer in the anime, whereas in the manga they kind of take care of him, or at least seemingly rather quickly. But that kind of happens in manga where they just show a few panels of it. But yeah, those are all the manga differences. Yay! And that basically wraps up our coverage of episodes 3 and 4. I'm so excited for the next few episodes. Spoiler alert, like episode 5 is already out. And once I click stop recording on this, we may go ahead and watch it because I want to freaking watch it. But loving this anime so far. Hope you guys are too. Bailey, any closing thoughts?
Not today.
All right, let's get to our freaking baby.
Yep.
We love you guys, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.